Hello everyone, welcome back to their LEC breakdown, the last one of the split as our European side of things have now concluded. A quick thank you to all of you guys who have watched over the last 9 weeks as we break down weekly everything that's gone on so far. This will be a bit of a different episode. We're not going to break down awards, plays of the week or teams of the week, so on and so forth, but thank you all for watching throughout the last 9 weeks of European play as we now approach playoffs in just about 2 weeks time. So we get about a week off of not doing too many videos out there, but going to be very cool to see how these teams do compete, because dare I say, of the standings so far, and of course our final standings, that being those 6 teams that did make it in, they are certainly, in my opinion, the solidified best teams to make it through. Yes, I guess you could argue maybe a Schalke could have slipped in there, but either way, you look at the last 10 games they did play, they are not a team that was probably deserving of a playoff run, so I'm very glad SK did sneak in. But all in all, thank you all for watching over these past 9 weeks. It's been crazy to see how these teams had developed. Before we get into the playoff predictions out there and the playoff breakdown, I do want to share from this last week, I have to, one of the best games, if not the single best game we saw the entire split was this past weekend, the Fnatic and G2 rematch, and it was pretty crazy, and they share with us the clip of the final game, the final moments of the game as well, with the player comms.
Can we go?
I'm basing.
I'm dead.
I'm basing. I'm gonna.
I didn't get base.
I got base.
Please, heal.
I can't stop that. I can't stop that. Hit it.
Keep
hitting. Keep hitting. You have it. You have it.
No! Yes, man! Go!
Oh, I loved hearing the comms on that. Welcome.
And I share that clip because not only was it an amazing game to watch, it was also a nail-biter, a string of league that you not really expected, especially because Fnatic had such a strong start during that game. We will talk about that, how that's going to affect my playoff predictions in the back half of the episode, but alongside that as well, when you look at our final solidified 6 teams, a lot of things would have happened a bit differently if Fnatic had lost that game there, if Vitality had also won just one of their 2 matches. Unfortunately enough for them, they go 0-2 this past weekend. We would have had a series of tiebreakers along with SK and Schalke if the other results had stayed the same. So if Fnatic dropped that, Vitality pick up a match, we're looking at 2 to 3 tiebreakers to really solidify these top 6 teams out there. G2, Origin, alongside them, Fnatic, Splice, Vitality, and SK. I think arguably, in my opinion, like I said before, certainly in the back half of the split as well, the 6 best teams have now made playoffs, which you love to see. You look at the Misfits, yes, they could have slipped through, they had their chances. They despite a last match win against G2 where nothing for either team was on the line, they lost 8 of their last 11. You look at Schalke, they lost, I believe, 7 of their last 9, or so be it, somewhat close to that. These are 2 teams that arguably did not deserve to be there, and I'm very grateful the 6 teams that did make it through managed to make it through. And some final words of consolation for Rogue and Excel as well, especially Excel these past 2-3 weekends, or you look at the back half of the split, showing some sparkful moments. If sparkful is even the right word to choose, I think Rogue showing a few less of those moments, but still had their games, right, where we thought, okay, this is a turnaround for this team. I'm excited to see if any academy members actually slip up through the seams and join their main roster. But either way, when you look at a team like Excel, I do not think they will be where they are now next split. I'm excited to see when you take the back half of the split, Excel is certainly a team who can compete with teams like Misfits or Schalke on the streaks they had loss-wise. Excel is a team I think can definitely grow in the right direction, and I'm certainly excited to see where they end up next split and hopefully making some changes, if not player-wise, gameplay-wise, for next split. Let's bounce off that, though, of course, maybe why you came here, playoff predictions. I'm very curious what you guys think about this. Leave your predictions down below. These are my opinions, okay? Please don't torch me. This is what I saw over the last 9 weeks. I'm going to make some bold predictions, some obvious predictions, and you guys can leave yours down below as to what you think is going to happen, because when it goes to best of one, from best of ones to best of fives, we all know it is very hard to predict what changes these teams are going to make and what team is really going to come out on top. But if there is one matchup I feel fully confident on, I'm sure you guys will as well, it's the rise of Fnatic, the slight fall of Vitality. That's their opening matchup, and besides that, Fnatic coming in at the 3 seed, they choose to face Vitality instead of SK, and that speaks wonders to me how confident they are to face off against Vitality. It also speaks wonders for our next matchup of how fearful some teams might be of SK. So along with that, speaking of which, I think Fnatic over Vitality should be pretty easy. Over their last 10 matches, guys, of course, Fnatic on a huge, slightly win streak, right? A little bit, very, very tadfully streaky, but still in the back half of the split, the best team in EU. Do not take that for doubt. The last 10 matches for Vitality going 4-6, and their most most recent matchup against Fnatic, Vitality did lose. I think in a best of 5 experience-wise as well, Fnatic wins this matchup, and it should be fairly easy for a team on a snowball effect as they are. Bouncing off that, of course, when it comes to a game like Splice and SK, certainly likely we expect to be more close. I still think, though, I'm going to favor SK in this moment because they are, yes, still very, very dependent upon Selfmade, but still, he is a very powerful player, still looking very strong. You look at a team like Splice, though, despite, I will say one thing, in the past 2-3 weeks, a team who has had a few shorter games than usual, they still seem very dependent on stretching those games out. So if a team like SK can actually pull away and get a lead early and not allow that late game, I still think Splice are more dependent on their late game than SK is on Selfmade, and that might be a bold statement. You guys, of course, could swap that either way and then favor Splice instead. For me, though, I choose SK over Splice. Hopefully a close series, like all of them hopefully will be. And then G2 and Origin, teams out there who, of course, get their advantages coming at 1 and 2 seed and an automatic pass either if they lose or win to a step above the other teams out there. I probably explained that super poorly, but the matchup we've all wanted to see, especially when it comes down to best of 5s, 2 things: how G2 can predict other teams, and the other thing, of course, most importantly, how teams can play G2 and predict G2. And one of the teams that all the teams out there have spoken well of in terms of best of 3s or best of 5s, in terms of actually learning the curve of their opponents, has been this Origin lineup. And again, alongside Fnatic, one of our better teams in the back half of the split, a team that all the teams have feared so far, I think Origin have a very strong chance to take this, although G2 should still be your favorites. I do say, though, if Mickey is not playing, I'm going to hope for that in my predictions. I will say Origin take this series, and they might surprise a few of us. So if there's going to be any bold call so far, I think this likely would be it. I think Origin take down G2 in this first best of 5. And then, yes, I think Fnatic take down either SK or Splice, whoever comes out of that. I just think it's pretty obvious they should have been your number 2 seed, given their 3-7 start, and of course their finish as well at the number 3 seed. They have to be your favorite team throughout this lower bracket. I hope you guys can agree with that. They've proven time and time again it's not just Reckless they depend on. Bwipo, if he does not get caught out in his aggressiveness, aggressive Bwipo has returned. It still makes me so nervous, but Broxa as well, his early game laning and pathing, we've talked about plenty. This team now activates whoever they want to, and if they can activate the right players early on and get that early game lead, especially against a Splice, and of course, like I said before, my one weak point of SK, they're still dependent on Selfmade as well. I think both these teams show a lot more weakness than Fnatic has over the last half of the split. I think you have to favor easily Fnatic over either of those teams to make it through, which does mean a rematch once again. Of course, all of these are technically going to be rematches, but the rematch we've all wanted to see, especially this past weekend, that being Fnatic and G2. Fnatic barely hanging on, and G2 almost hanging on. Fnatic take that best of 1, which would be a rematch here in this best of 5, and I don't really know who to choose here, okay? So from here on out, anything can happen. I feel fairly confident in my picks before that. I guess I could say even, actually I don't feel confident at all. But when I look at that last best of 1, it's hard to take away too much from it, right? We have a G2 with a broken lineup and Promisq coming back. I think a lot of people underrate him, and they likely probably should, but with that matchup, it was almost to the point where G2 impressed me more than Fnatic, and they lost the match. With their late game defenses and Fnatic's late game inability to actually find the right fights, it made me very worried in a broken G2 roster. If Mickey does somehow return for this matchup, I'm going to take G2 because they are still your favorited team. They are still likely your more powerful team out there, and if G2 can avoid the mistakes they made all split long, and I know I'm changing my preferences for each matchup so it makes me feel better, because of course I could have said the same thing when G2 played Origin. I chose Origin over G2, but I think G2 against Fnatic will be a very interesting matchup. If these guys cannot maybe joke around as much, we see them a little bit more locked down, a little bit more restricted. Yes, still aggressive G2, but a bit smarter G2, a bit more, you know, they want to make MSI G2. I think they take this best of 5 against Fnatic. And then I'm not going to predict the final for all of you. I think based on my predictions, it will be another rematch. That's going to be for a potential 10 maps or 10 games in total against these two teams, that being G2 and Origin. All of my heart wants to say that it's going to be a G2 and Fnatic final somehow, which means G2 would have to take down Origin. Fnatic would then also take down Origin as well. In the semifinals, anything can happen. I really do think those are probably your top 3 teams. Your top 3 seeded teams should be your top 3 teams to go through. How they go through and in what order they make the finals, I really can't decide. I just give you guys my reasonings, and hopefully you guys can leave yours down below. Anything can happen, and in 2 weeks time we're going to see some mad playoffs, and I cannot wait to see how everything does break down. But as always, my name is Jake. I hope you guys all enjoy. I'll be back here later, of course, as we enter our last weekend of NALCS. I'll be breaking down week 8 and of course week week 9 as well as they head into playoffs. That's going to be next week. So I cannot wait. Hope you guys all enjoy. And until next time, take care.